one night, I fell asleep and woke up the next morning, 17 years in the future. I was 15 years old again, trapped in a 32-year-old body, and had woken up in a life I didn't recognize because I had lost 17 years of memories overnight. For the past 13 years, this has been the tagline of my story and was the catalyst for huge and profound change in my life. Most notably how experiencing my adult life through teenage eyes caused me to discover how damaging life can be when your story remains untold. On that fateful morning, I woke up in a bedroom I didn't recognize, a life I had no memory of, and a face I soon realized once I had seen my braces had been removed, that had aged in years. It took only a matter of hours for me and my family to realize that I had in fact lost a total of 17 years of memories and was 15 again. The last memory I did have was falling asleep in my old hometown in the bunk beds I shared with my sister, thinking about my impending French exam and the boy I had a crush on who never noticed me. Now, being a teenager the first time around was no easy feat. But to have to do it a second time, I honestly thought the universe was playing a cruel joke on me. Insomuch as for the first 24 hours, I genuinely thought I would fall asleep that night and wake back up in 1992. This is one of the reasons why I would not allow my family to take me to any hospital. But I found myself waking up the next morning, still 15, still stuck in the future, and still having no memory of how I came to be there. My family and friends spent days, weeks trying to help me navigate a life I had no memory of, and this alien world full of 21st century technology I had no concept of. The last time I had seen a mobile phone, it was the size of a house brick and was synonymous with Wall Street types with too much money and not enough sense. In the future, these phones could now fit in the palm of your hands, and within them, you had access to something called the internet. Now, I had a strange idea. I had an idea of this concept, having been introduced to it before I left school, but Google, Facebook, YouTube, social media, pages upon pages of information there at your fingertips blew my mind. Technology such as CCTV cameras on every street corner, cashless chip and PIN cards, laptop computers the size of textbooks, games consoles you could stand in front of a television and control your avatar with the flick of a wrist, and even digital television looked cartoonish to my eyes, which were still used to an analog world. And whoa, reality TV. It took my teenage self a while to wrap around the concept that people actually spent time just watching other people live their lives. And it seemed the richer, the slimmer, the prettier, the better. I even used the same language I used as a teenager. Influenced by pop culture at that time, everything on one end of the spectrum was excellent, from Wayne's World or sad, bogus, and rank. Nirvana was no longer. Hip-hop had become pop. And I even had the same taste buds I had as a teenager, highly disgusted with my adult self's taste. My response to coffee was, ugh. Cigarettes, are you kidding me? Olives, in what world am I supposed to like those? No. I had woken up in a life where I was a single mother, living in a 2-up, 2-down, driving a beaten-up car, struggling to finish a psychology degree, and surviving off social welfare. My teenage self was heavily disappointed in the way my life had turned out and judged it harshly. Of course, in those lost 17 years, my family had aged. I had missed significant life events such as weddings, graduations, death, and loss. I'd even given birth to a son. Now, it was a strange feeling waking up in a body where I had an idea that I'd given birth, but no actual memory of it. And When I was around him, I just treated him kind of like a big sister, sometimes treating it like an unpaid babysitting job. The memory of him being born in water to the sounds of Alanis Morissette playing in the background, gone. His first day at school vanished, his first steps lost. Still, the more time I spent around this kid, the more my teenage self could see that he was this confident, skateboard-loving, self-assured kid who seemed to take life in this sunny, optimistic stride. So much so that it caused my teenage self to ask, what had happened to me that I had to forget giving birth to him? What had happened so bad that my brain felt the need to wipe out 17 years of memories, and how the hell was I going to get those memories back? By my 3rd week of my memory loss, I went to see a doctor. His response to me telling him I was 15 again, trapped in a 32-year-old body, was to go home, have a cup of tea, take a sleeping tablet, and just get a good night's sleep. There is a quote by one of my all-time favorite authors, Maya Angelou. She said that there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. By the 4th week of my memory loss, my teenage self found where I had hidden all of my untold stories. Underneath the bed she had woken up in weeks earlier, there was a box. Inside that box was 20 years' worth of diaries. I teach psychology and mental health and well-being to students between the ages of 16 and 19. And of course, especially during this time, their mental health has suffered exponentially. But what I have noticed, what I have found that helps, is when I give them the space to tell their story. When they do, I witness a change within them. It can be something as subtle as a brightening in their eyes or a lightening of their face, or sometimes it's so powerful and so profound, I witness something from within freeing itself. And every time this happens, it always brings me back to the psychological cost of things inside of us remaining untold. So I did some research. According to researchers Michael Slepian and Adam Galinsky from Columbia University and Nia Havley from Stanford University, using the positive effect schedule for sadness, fear, hostility, and guilt, the consequences of keeping secrets, the effects of things inside of us remaining untold are loneliness, fear of the consequences of speaking out, greater fatigue, a residue of negative feelings, social isolation, sadness, fear, hostility, leading to depression and anxiety. As my teenage self read those diaries and read about my innermost intimate thoughts, she soon came to realize that I had been experiencing all of these on a regular basis for a very long time. But why memory loss? And why at this point in my life? The diaries eventually gave me the answers. This is me at 6 years of age. I'm being hugged by my childhood friend, Davina, hence me smiling. But already at this point in my life, I had witnessed domestic violence, had been sexually abused, and eventually assaulted. It went untold. Here I am at 16, and I am smiling because I've made it to my final year exams. But already at this point in my life, there was alcoholism and emotional abuse in the home, and I had tried my first overdose attempt. It went untold. This is me at 32. I'm smiling because I'm with my son, who was then 10 years of age. But already at this point in my life, I had had 3 nervous breakdowns, had been homeless, bankrupt, abused drugs, and had been misdiagnosed with several mental illnesses, until one night I fell asleep and woke up 17 years in the future. What my teenage self read in those diaries almost destroyed her. The secrets that I had kept had eaten away at me. eroded any self-esteem I may have had, created a fragile sense of self housed under a dark cloud of shame. Those pages revealed a woman who lived life on high alert, saw danger around every corner, and preempted catastrophes, suppressing both fear and anger with pharmaceutical and recreational drugs. I distrusted all of my relationships and suffered with severe bouts of depression and anxiety and panic attacks. I had 1,000,001 untold stories inside of me, and eventually the sheer weight of carrying them, the agony inside of me, broke me. My brain shut down and wiped out 17 years of memories overnight. But it was those 20 years worth of diaries that actually helped me get my memories back. And in all of the darkness and despair, where I found the courage to tell my story. 5 years after gaining my memories, my story went viral. And in all the questions the journalists asked me, all the interviews, one that came up time and time again was, why 15? Why that particular age? It was only really in writing the book did I come to fully understand why. 15 because it was the age I gave up on myself. It was the age I decided I was no longer worthy of living a good life, and the only way I was going to survive that life was by suppressing my lived experiences with drugs. 15 was the age that I set my life upon a self-destructive path that ultimately led to a very painful place. Until one day I got to wake up in that place and see firsthand the consequences of those decisions. Ultimately, the universe was playing no joke. It was giving me a second chance to make a different decision. And I did. I told. After doing a lot of research for my book and seeing many medical professionals, I was eventually diagnosed with something called dissociative retrograde amnesia. This is a rare form of psychogenic amnesia brought on by severe stress. But experiencing the amnesia and the telling of my story helped me come to terms with my past, with what had shaped my life, with what had happened to me. And in many ways, the telling of my story helped me form meaning out of my pain. It shifted my perspective on my own strength and resilience, and just how truly formidable I was in being able to survive what I had gone through and still smile. I recently read a study that showed that an engaged listener's brain activity syncs up with the brain activity of the storyteller, producing a shared emotional and cognitive experience in real time. It stated that this coupling between the brain waves of tellers and listeners shows visible evidence of how our consciousness connects. The brain waves of the listener mirrors the brain waves of the storyteller. Neurons fire together and forge deep bonds, creating empathy and compassion. In other words, neurons that fire together, wire together. So I say this to you. If there is something inside of you that remains untold, let it out. Speak your truth. Tell your story. Release the agony Maya talks of. You don't deserve to carry the pain or the shame any longer. If there is something you know, something you want to tell, something you need to tell, tell it. Free yourself and free the world around you and bond with each other's brains. Because one night I fell asleep and woke up the next morning, 17 years in the future, and realized I wanted nothing inside of me to remain untold. Telling it to others is a way of giving witness to ourselves. And there is always the chance that our story, your story, is exactly what someone else needs to hear. Thank you.